because they're the most visible. But I went to Tech, and they're not any better, so I'm not. No university in the United States teaches what I talk about. But anyway, as I was railing against what the universities were pushing, I finished. Here comes walking up to me a fellow with a maroon hat in his hand. He said, "Here, Howard, this is for you. I'm Dr. Joe McFarland. I'm in charge of the research station in Stephenville. I'm 100% organic at my home. We're doing 100% organic maintenance at the research station. When are you going to start giving us a break?" I said, "How about right now?" I said, let's go see your place, and we visited. He is the one that taught me that cornmeal put on the ground cures fungal problems. And he told me about a specific thing. He had discovered that the peanut crops, and they were doing research on trying to come up with a new chemical pesticide. That's one of the things wrong with the chemicals. Finally, the organism, whether it's an insect or a disease, gets immune, and you have to come up with different products. And so they started playing around with corn because they noticed in the fields when the peanut crop followed a corn crop in rotation, they didn't have any disease on the peanuts. So they started playing with cornmeal in the petri dishes in the lab. They discovered that cornmeal shut down fungal diseases. And he told me the fungal disease was rhizoctonia. And I said, hot dog. And he knew exactly what I was thinking. He said, "Howard, don't you go telling people that this will cure brown patch and St. Augustine grass, because that's also a rhizoctonia." So that weekend I told about 40,000 people. And we started getting all this input back about, man, this really works, and it works fast. All you got to do is put cornmeal down, brown patch goes away. Well, I thought that was neat, so I started playing around with seedlings in the greenhouse, and Indian hawthorn and photinia problems, all these fungal problems. And we started curing fungal problems all over the place. I gave the audience that information, and I asked for information in return. That's a big thing that I like to do. And they started telling me all these other things that the cornmeal would work on. And lo and behold, one day I got a call from a fella named Eddie from Personville, Texas. Never forget this call. He said, "Howard, I got a new use for cornmeal." I said, "Oh boy, we're live on there. I wonder what this is going to be." He said, "You know, I've used it. I use it on my potted plants, solved some problems. I've used it on this. It works, like you say. But I got to thinking." He said, "Fungus is fungus, probably." He said, "My wife and I have had toenail fungus all our lives, for a long time." He said, "We both soaked our feet and it cured it." That was the beginning of the most fascinating thing that I've ever run into. If you go to my website now, dirtdoctor.com, there's about 15 different stories on there about curing with cornmeal, especially this horticultural cornmeal. And by the way, horticultural cornmeal, you'll see me use that term a lot. That's just the outside edge of the corn. When they make regular cornmeal, they separate the bran and the germ from the starchy endosperm. The bad news of that story is the cornmeal you and I eat, that's the starchy endosperm. The good healthy part of the outside goes to feed the pigs. And that's what we have turned into the horticultural cornmeal, unless you get whole ground corn. We have found now that the cornmeal will cure toenail fungus, ringworms, athlete's foot, jock rash, eczema, seborrhea. The list is, I got one this morning about somebody soaking some part of their body and it curing something. We have MD. And yes, where your mind is right now, that's exactly what it was. I have MDs recommending it now because the toenail fungus on the market, I had no idea so many people in the world had toenail fungus, by the way. But the toenail fungus pharmaceutical drug that's on the market, that's made by one of my old clients, by the way, is extremely expensive, and it doesn't work very well, and it's very hard on your liver. So anyway, that's the most fun thing that we deal with, but we deal with a lot of other issues. We really encourage the feedback from people, and I'm not embarrassed at all when people report things that don't work. That's what we're after. We're after the truth. The bottom line on this organic business that I push is that it works better. It works better in every way. We have saved people a lot of money. We've made people a lot healthier in many, many ways. And the dog issue is another thing. We've solved skin problems and allergies and things like that in dogs because we help bring a dog food on the market that's the only dog food that doesn't contain chemical preservatives. It's the only one. And it also is the only one that contains natural diatomaceous earth in the product. So, in other words, we've jumped out of the box. We're looking at things that, unfortunately, the universities are not looking at yet. We have formed our own nonprofit organization at this point called the Texas Organic Research Center. This will be the first place I've ever announced this. We've just hired the lady that was in charge of research at the Dallas Arboretum to work for our organization. Leslie Finnicle is on board as of 2 days ago, and we're tickled about that. That's probably enough general information. If you want how you do an organic program, the free handouts are here. The website has the free handouts. There's a toll-free number that you can tell anybody to call, and the ground crew will send you the information as well. The ground crew, by the way, is an organization you join, and you get a little monthly magazine about all this stuff, and discounts on the organic products, another cost savings deal. And we have seminars for just the ground crew from time to time. Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
So what is it about cornmeal that does it?
What does it about cornmeal? The cornmeal, as Joe McFarland and his staff discovered, when they were looking at the Petri dishes, they were actually trying to grow some plants and from seed, and also they were trying to grow some disease organisms to make tests with chemicals. And what they started seeing was in the Petri dish was this gray material starting to grow very quickly. They isolated the gray material and they found out that it was trichoderma, which is a beneficial fungus. They also see, and we're seeing more and more of it now as we look at this more carefully, that the cornmeal stimulates the growth of penicillins as well. And so you get the reason it works so much better than the chemicals is that the chemicals are, they'll kill all microorganisms. They'll kill the good organisms as well as the bad and form a virtual vacuum. And in a vacuum, what grows back the quickest are the pathogens. So what the cornmeal does, it stimulates the good guys, it neutralizes the pathogens, and at that point those pathogens are still there, but they've been repressed and they become beneficial if they're in there at the right population. See, any disease is simply microbiotic activity out of balance, and all the cornmeal does is just help move it back into balance. Cornmeal is a fascinating thing. Cornmeal goes to sugar very, very quickly, very efficiently, and that's what stimulates that biological activity so fast. It's also why you should be careful not to eat too much corn, but it's pretty fascinating stuff. Yes, back in the back. Any cornmeal seems to work. The yellow cornmeal and the one that we call horticultural cornmeal, that's that outside edge, the concentrated good part of the kernel, seems to work the best. If you had to say what would be the ultimate cornmeal, would be for you can buy it, but it's very hard to find, or grow your own organically grown cornmeal and grind up the entire kernel. That would be best. Second would be what's called horticultural cornmeal. It's under the brand Alliance. I've helped them put the products on the market. But we've gotten a lot of reports that just regular cornmeal works to some degree, just not as well. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, didn't they, in regard to your comment about the bad part of corn, didn't they just recently say in the papers that they tied the problem of obesity in our country largely to the use of corn syrup now in so many prepared foods?
That's exactly right. And that the manufacturing of corn syrup, which is a terrible health issue, that corn syrup is what they're manufacturing when they come up with corn gluten meal. Corn gluten meal is what's kicked off of that manufacturing process, that wet milling process. And for years they were putting it in animal feeds and throwing it away. And then Nick Christians and the bunch at Iowa State discovered it was a weed and feed fertilizer. That's right. Another risk on cornmeal is this. For example, this Munster natural dog food that we helped develop, I'm reluctant to say this, but it's the truth, so I will. The last 2 years